This afternoon we're going to have Jim Rizzoli and Diane King from the United States, and they have really specialized in revisionist videos. Whereas our speaker, Brian Rue, the other night had videos all over the landscape. They've zeroed in on this particular niche and done very well and put out a good volume of material. And just before I introduce the speaker, I want to say that I think we are now beginning to reach what you might call a critical mass. That is, there's enough material out there that young people or older people who suddenly feel there's something wrong can educate themselves. 10 years ago, young people coming to our circles tended perhaps to be a little rough around the edges. They may have had the right emotions, but they didn't have a lot of knowledge. Now we're getting people like a Valian, like a person who comes to the meetings out in Vancouver, who's in her late 20s, who are entirely self-educated. They didn't join a group, they hadn't read a lot of books, it wasn't literature, it was the internet, which means there is a tremendous amount of good material up there. Not only Dr. David Duke and a whole lot of others, but the work our speakers this afternoon have done, Brian Rue, there's now that critical mass of material that if you're curious and you want to know, there's things that you can read. So we are effectively, I think, subverting the largely rotten and controlled education system, or at least the resources are out there, and they're out there at least in part because of our speakers this afternoon. So I'm going to invite Diane King up to explain the work that she's been doing, especially in the area of revisionism.
Boy, it's great to be back, see all these friends. You're the reason why we wanted to come back, was to see our German friends and see you at the meeting here. As you probably noticed, Jim Rizzoli is not here today. We had a little issue with a passport. Not to worry, that should be resolved. And hopefully we will be back in October. And I really feel almost like that's my mission, is that we get back. He gets back here with us in October. It wasn't an immigration issue, it was just a date issue. And so just a slight oversight, and we are correcting that right now. In my pursuit of attempting to expedite renewal of his passport because of this, I found some information that's a little bit disturbing, very typical of our country, and probably yours too. You have no idea how many laws are being passed. I found out that effective January 22nd, 2018, air travelers with identification that do not meet the real, R-E-A-L, all caps, ID Act requirements and whose state does not have an extension must present an alternative form of identification in order to board a domestic flight. By 2020 means you have to have either these real ID, your state has to be in compliance, or you use a passport. By 2020, then you will be mandated. You cannot use your driver's license anymore unless it's the so-called official approved real ID. It's going to be more difficult to travel. People who just operate on the basis of their driver's license right now can't use a driver's license. Now we're really being monitored. And without impunity, or with impunity, is that we won't be allowed to travel without these IDs. Okay, that was lovely. That was a little lovely discovery made in regard to freedom of travel, which is supposed to be somewhat guaranteed in our country. Your country, it's the one you get to travel at all. But then Air Canada comes up, and then you realize how much fun air travel can really be. So anyway, in regard to Jim and I have been, what have we been doing, baby, since July 2016, the past year? We interviewed 7 of you at the time, and it was invaluable. I was able to use it to initiate another cable show, which would be the 4th one, Wolf on German History. So we stopped it to them with 4 episodes of German survivors of Allied atrocities. Unfortunately, there are way more of you than we could get to. And every time Karen was going to have us interview someone that we're hoping to interview in the fall as well. too many of you have been victimized, and you are still victimized. And because you are victimized, we are all victimized. That's just how our government works, because they are operated by none of our interests, people of none of our interests. So, what else has occurred since then? Well, there have been a number of shows. Very politically correct, I want you to know. Historical revisionist, Wolf on Real History, and Wolf on German History, and that's in Framingham in Massachusetts. Then we have Connect the Dots in Ashland. Except for the July show, which I'm going to be sending out to you, where I read I'll do a little bit of it at the end, my essay on the 4th of July, which talks about, and basically it identifies one country who cannot enjoy their national heritage. Wonder which that one is. So, but that's in July. Since last July, I had created a diagram called the Shrine to German Bashing, and it's based on the tenets established in Did 6 Million Really Die? 66 Answers and Questions of the Holocaust, where there are 9 bricks to this rotten structure. You tear down the bricks, you tear down the facade, you tear down the German bashing. It has one word to describe it all, and that's Holocaust. There are a number of books that I've used in this regard, and it's been, I'll show you one, Paul's selling this back there. So surprisingly, this one survived the purge on Amazon. Germar Rudolph's did not. Okay, so in Framingham, which is predominantly, I wouldn't say Democratic, because they're not Democratic, they're Democrats. Dyed-in-the-wool, mind-numbing, hard-bitten, liberal Democrats. And they're not interested in diversity. They want everybody to think like they do. They do not want diversity of opinion. So here comes Jim Rizzoli. Jim Rizzoli, Italian background, discovered the immigration issue about a decade ago. Actually longer than that. He and his brother have been involved in that, and everybody, a lot of people are getting on board. Wow, you got all these Brazilians coming into town, being plugged into the goodies. Of course, you wouldn't know anything about that here, right? About being plugged, the immigrants being plugged into the goodies in your country, and you get to pay for it. So anyway, but when he discovered somebody that was also an immigrant being deported, unlike these other characters that were illegal, Ernst Zundel was being deported. And he's saying, why? And what's going on with this? Well, he began to discover it. Because he had 4 cable shows on at the time, he began to talk about his discoveries. Well, needless to say, the Jewish element in his community were not happy with his exposure of this, because not only when you talk about Ernst Zundel, you talk about, well, what was he doing? Did 6 million really die? Well, why was that a problem? And then you have to get into the Holocaust. You have to get into the tenets of the Holocaust. And he started discussing these on his cable show. The long and short of it is, he no longer has these 4 cable shows. He and his brother have been removed. Not only that, his 700-plus YouTube channel some years ago was removed. And that was before YouTube was actually censoring. Now they're cracking down now. We also have been sending, as a result of the influx, thanks to the Obama administration, of illegals into Framingham. Now we have an administration presumably in order to deal with this. They're hiring more ICE agents, they're doing more roundups and so on. Every time I see an article come out in the Framingham paper, oh, things are really bad, they're rounding up more people. I go, yes. That means ICE is working. That means that they hesitate to admit that Trump's, I mean, they're so anti-Trump, you could taste it, that his plans might be working. They hate to admit it. but it is, because they're moaning and groaning about it. They're trying to hide their illegals. And we can quote chapter and verse of the law that they're supposed to be, abiding by the law. And I always refer to Framingham, who wants to be a sanctuary city, as a city that does not want their federal funding. Because they said, and in my state of Texas, the governor and the attorney general have declared war on sanctuary cities in Texas. And there has already been federal funding pulled from a number of these cities. That's how you do it. So we're still attempting to get HUD and ICE to take a really good look at Framingham. So now the issue is what's done to Jim. What does that constitute? Well, it constitutes issues of free speech. They're shutting down his right to free speech. Now, interestingly, he also is running for mayor, you may have heard. Well, a guy with a history of Holocaust denial, anti-immigration, snowball's chance. So why is he running? He's running as kind of like, in Lord of the Rings, there was a phrase, a disturber of the peace. Shake things up. Cause them to have to visit these things. The politicians there will not face the immigration issue. They're paying out millions of dollars. Well, I wonder what's wrong with our budget. I don't know what to do with our budget. Stop the influx of illegals. Oh, I don't know if we can do that. What are we going to do about our budget? The schools, they're having to build new schools because of the kids coming in. It's just numerous expenses. They're facing overrides. Override is when you have to go into beyond your budget to pay your bills. And then there's bankruptcy, and they're heading headlong into that. So in his bid for mayor, he is a write-in candidate, and that will be in the July show that I'm doing for Ashland that I want you people to see too, because it's about something that's important to us. My part, my 13-minute part in the beginning, which gives me goosebumps whenever I listen to it, and then you can actually hear what he's doing as mayor. Interestingly, he would be the perfect candidate for mayor. For one, he tells the truth. Two, he's not planning to spend any money. Three, he's going to cut the budget. And four, he's not going to take a salary. What better qualifications for a mayor? Plus more. So, in the issue of free speech, we've been running up against some things. Have any of you ever heard of the anti-Semitism bill that was been attempted to pass in the Senate? Actually, it was passed in the Senate. Yeah. Paul's around, yeah. HR 672. It comes by different names. And it was introduced right before the election. What Mario Rubio, I think, was one of the co-authors of this atrocity in Florida. And it passed through the Senate. And then it went to the House, and in the true American way, died in the House because it violated free speech issues. Well, what does it say? I'll just give a little summary of what it says. Congress finds the following. During the past decade, there has been a steady increase in anti-Semitic incidents in Europe, resulting in European Jews being the targets of physical and verbal harassment and even lethal terrorist attacks, all of which has eroded personal and communal security and the quality of daily Jewish life. Did you hear about that? Anti-Zionism has at times devolved into anti-Semitic attacks, prompting condemnation from many European leaders, including a number of them, apparently denunciation, including Angela Merkel, sterling character that she is. Since 2010, the Department of State has adhered to the working definition of anti-Semitism by the European Monitoring Center on Racism and Xenophobia. Some contemporary examples of anti-Semitism include the following: calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews. Of course, none of us do that. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as a collective, especially but not exclusively the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy, or at Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other social institutions. That's considered anti-Semitism, to think that way. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing, obviously imagined, committed by a single Jewish person or group, the State of Israel, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing and exaggerating the Holocaust. There are a number of other things. It further clarifies that manifestations of anti-Semitism might also target the State of Israel. Might. You go to the source. So that's the anti-Semitism bill. Okay, it died right before the election. In January, it was trotted out again. Oh, you know, we've got to monitor anti-Semitic acts in Europe. It went into the Senate and got relegated to the Committee of Foreign Relations. Essentially, when you get relegated to a committee in the States, it dies. It must have, because they bring it out in May again. And in May, it went again to the Committee on Foreign Relations. And as of May, that's where it is. Our powers that be in the Senate are not as prepared, though they say it was a Congress-sponsored. Not all the congressmen are for it, and they are not prepared to sign off on something that they know is going to infringe on our rights. We don't have a Weasley Bill of Rights. I know you do. Your government decides who deserves it. Our government is attempting to break free of the restraints that cause them to have to abide by the Bill of Rights. How awful. Other things that we have done since last year presented the myth of German villainy, the bad war in the video, 1/3 of the Holocaust, Buchenwald and Dum-Dum portrayal of evil, Treblinka, politically correct stuff, Treblinka archaeology hoax exposed, Auschwitz and Weasel hoax, that's what I call him, David Irving's search for the truth, the greatest story never told, and it's being rebroadcasted now, again. Hellstorm, Germany must perish, AIPAC and Israel's master plan, New World Order, communism by the back door. Again, a product of Dennis Wise, who did The Greatest Story Never Told. Marching to Zion by Pastor Stephen Anderson, and then my essay on the 4th of July. So that's something that little things that were accomplished this last year. In regard, and you probably have heard this, there are two fronts here. The powers that be, if you will, have applied a lot of pressure to various companies. Amazon, #1, banned almost 200 of Guillermo Rudolph's books. The Bad War, M.S. King's books. Even Barnes & Noble got on board. They were offering The Bad War, but I don't think they're doing that now. But again, you can still get The Myth of German Villainy through Paul or on Amazon. There are other attempts at further censorship by YouTube. I know YouTube wants to, and right now, how they deal with my videos and Jim's videos is particularly if we use somebody else's music, even if it's with permission, they say copyright, but they don't ban it yet. But it looks like they're setting us up to eventually ban us at some point. Google now, in a lot of searches, I'm not sure how widespread this is, will put searches that we want to the back. So you have to search page after page after page to get to it, no matter how specific you get. So anyway, this is a little bit of the State of the Union, you might say. Now, my July video for Ashland will include, at the beginning, a lot of rah-rah patriotic songs and banners waving and firecrackers and stuff going off. That's how it leads into this. So this is how it goes. And I'm going to cut through a lot of it. The 4th of July, a time in the United States to set off numerous firecrackers and fireworks in celebration of our independence, at least in 1776. A time to sing the songs, America's Beautiful, God Bless America, Grand Old Flag, Yankee Doodle, Dixie, etc. On certain holidays, military parades are visited, admired, and soldiers applaud as they march down various streets across the country. You see the love of country, the pride and appreciation for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for their country. And, you know, we have memorials that have popped up, the Vietnam Memorial. I have a second cousin who is buried, well, he's in Vietnam. Oh, he's brought back. Yeah, his name's on there. And the United States isn't the only nation. There are, everybody, you all have you have a Dominion Day on July 1st. However, there's one country who does not. Has no such national holiday, no marking of historic events. There's no Chancellor's Day to remember the birthdays of former chancellors, or a day for remembering the Kaiser or any other of the royalty. There are no parades, no flags or banners. Men in military uniform do not march before an adoring and appreciative citizenry which line the streets. There's no Veterans Day or Memorial Day or memorials to remember those who fought on behalf of the fatherland. No veterans wall to touch the names for the same. No D-Day memorial of those defending the shores of the fatherland. And except for the national anthem, there are no songs reminiscent, no reminder of the years Germany ruled Europe. Well, that's understandable, you say. They don't deserve it. When Germans did such things, they nearly conquered Europe. And that's supposed to be a bad thing? Look at what's happened today and since. But if that's the criteria for denying a people their national identity, then the Russians should not be allowed to express their communist identity, marching their parades and thugs and criminals through the street on May 1st. I don't know if they still do it, but they did it for a very long time. They can if they want to. And that awful national anthem, Internationale, gets in your mind and you can't get it out of your head. It's just appalling. So it's the most vicious, barbaric system known in the history of man, but it's okay if they march their criminals through the street, or our criminals for that matter. And Red China is the same. Why the inequity? Why the oppression against one people's in preference for another? The victors write the history books, right? They also determine the international agendas. You've probably observed how the enemies of free speech and thought attempt to associate at every opportunity the free thinkers and usually right with the dreaded National Socialists. They call them Nazis, I won't. That's supposed to be insulting and degraded to demon. They try to do that with Donald Trump. Anybody they disapprove of in the political realm, they're a horrible Nazi. That's supposed to end the discussion. Well, it doesn't. That's one of their tactics against free speech, to demonize the speaker, to cover, obscure, attempt to destroy, color, and otherwise misrepresent the truth. And one of these ways, first of all, through ranging from subtle to blatant attacks, is the attack on Germans with a clear anti-German bias in the media that has occurred way, way long ago, even before World War I. And so, anyway, I boycotted the History Channel for that very thing. Nearly every reference to Germans in the media is with disrespect or hostility. Have you ever heard anything on TV, movies, news, about how great the German people are? You're the only ones. We're the only ones that do not. It would be one thing if this posturing were accurate, but they are solely lacking the simple truths discovered since World War II. The Germans are still suffering from it, as y'all are suffering. We are all suffering. It's their portal into condemning the rest of us. No one wins in a national character assassination, especially on this scale. So what is the foundation of this national mudslinging, this hostility? What is the one thing of which the Nazis are accused and eternally found guilty? What is the one word that describes it all? The Holocaust. You're supposed to quiver and shiver and bow and quiet and yes and all that when you hear the term. Dare you question it? The alleged state-ordered, planned and executed extermination of European Jewry to the tune of 6 million, the most barbaric act in all humanity. That is the indictment, and maybe it would have been if it were true. Then you have to study each of the integral parts, which I went ahead and did on these videos. To some extent, it's on the July video. It presents just these and has a little more appropriate language, music in the background. So anyway, on the 4th of July, which you don't really celebrate unless you go to the States, but on your 1st of July, when we see the rockets, red glare, and bombs bursting in air, the symbolism of our nation's struggle for nationhood in the past, the parades, the red, white, and blue, the flag with the stars and stripes, the soul-stirring music, we should remember that there is one nation that cannot enjoy such celebrations and who has been beaten down and robbed of their national soul. Is not the American spirit to champion the cause of those oppressed? Can we not export a freedom-loving spirit instead of our own brand of terrorism to the nations of the world? Should there not be a call to arms and a way to fight the forces against free thought and expression so rampant now? Should we now renew our own Declaration of Independence against such blatant hostility? For then we will have the right to have the land of the free, because we will be the home of the brave.
I didn't hear too good. Did you say the land of the depraved?
As it is now, the way our foreign policy works, it's exactly what we are. That's what we're exporting. It's a corporatocracy. I've even been seeing movies where our soldiers are being killed in attempting to support the corporate structure in Afghanistan, for example. They have a huge poppy or opium business going on there. I understand Afghanistan is very, very rich in natural resources. Well, I can just see the salivating in Washington over that, and but not necessarily for our good. It's to abscond with it. And so, yeah, we are depraved. We're depraved because we have left the mindset of a Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Franklin said, you prevent it. You take care of free speech, you've got it wrapped up. And that's what they're trying to do. They're having some trouble, though. We've got, I understand in regards, as I saw a book over there on the Confederacy, Alabama has passed a law that they're not taking down any of their monuments. I just saw that. Perhaps the other southern states will fall in line as well. Well, that's what happens. Freedom of expression, a little resistance, a little pushback, and that's what happens. And the Fed's a little bit of a bully. They don't feel like they have the right, and they don't. Jim was required, just a second there, Dee, to have 500 signatures to be put on the ballot. And in Framingham, that may be the line to which they exclude him from debates. Even though he's a write-in candidate, he won't be allowed to participate. And for us, it'd be like Pat Buchanan was a write-in candidate. And I don't know if he was allowed either, but that is what they do in Framingham. And he's done this before. Now, when he ran, I believe as a representative, he ran against this woman, he had gotten the signatures and all, and she died before the election. She still got 3,000 votes. And of course, they couldn't have her in, so they took the one with the next amount of votes, so it wasn't Jim. So he crosses all his T's, dots all his I's, and still the fix is in. There is absolutely no way, unless you've got a rhino, Republican in name only, but is politically correct in town. So anyway, he's still going to run for office regardless, and we're going to be putting because he's banned on the 4 cable shows that I do. Like I said, he was taken off the 4 cable shows, and he is not allowed, even though they said if he ran for office he could be on there. They're not allowing him to. They're not allowing me to interview him. So we go to Ashland, the community next door, and he broadcasts about his mayor race on Ashland. So I'm sorry, your question? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you made reference earlier to the other speaker, Jim, not appearing because of some passport issue.
Yeah.
Can you clarify?
Yes, ma'am. He had acquired his passport 10 years ago. 10 years ago, March. Now, last year, he was here in July. No problem. And I'm not sure why I didn't catch it, but this is not March. This is June. It's 3 months expired. Now, that's okay. I asked the people in the United States. That was fine. Under a year is fine. I said, yeah, but it's okay in Canada. I asked the lady at Customs and Immigration. She said, nobody's getting in here. Nobody's getting in Canada with an expired passport. I thought, I wonder if they apply that same principle to your illegal people. That I remember Paul was talking once where, and if I could remember this correctly, so a Chinese person was coming through. They didn't have their documents. And the border guard says, well, make sure you have your documents the next time. And they let them go on through. So it's not equitable by any means. And being a white U.S. citizen puts us in a distinct disadvantage unless you actually know somebody in the passport office or anything like that. They consider in the United States expediting the passport process 3 weeks. That's an expediting. Regular 6 to 8 weeks to get your passport back. So you pay all these fees, you might get it back in 3 weeks. Usually get it back in 3 weeks anyway. So no, he's not in trouble with the officials or anything, as far as I know. Yes, sir.
What is, and how many people can Jim count there? How many are there still there of European descent?
Oh boy, a lot of Italians still, but as the Brazilians move in, there's like white flight. I've seen that here. They tend to leave because as they move in and get plugged into the goodies, and it will occur even more. Property taxes go up, utilities go up, people with fixed incomes can't afford to live there, so they have to go to other communities. As far as, I'm not sure what the number of white people are in Framingham. Jim, do you have a guess at that?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say a good 30% of the population is ethnic, you know, is all diverse among nationalities.
You're saying, right, 30% is diverse?
Oh, yeah. And the Brazilians, they're probably about, you know, I'd say, let me see, about maybe 10,000 of them in the town, so that's 10, you know, a little about 15%, 20%.
Of 67,000. And they're coming in droves again. And they're coming with kids, and they're having more kids, too. Okay, so in your guesstimation, what do you think you'll get as your voter base? How many people will vote for you, do you think?
Well, before I got into the Holocaust issue, I'd probably get 1,000 or 2,000 votes. But now, I'm not going to probably get off. So.
Not even for dog catcher. Yeah, the Holocaust issue was a deal breaker, but you can't undo or unlearn the truth. So it's not something that you're sorry about, essentially.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay, so what are our plans for the future? Of course, more videos. Fred Luichter contacted me the other day. I wasn't sure when I was going to hear from him again. He lives up near where Jim lives, near Boston. And so we're hoping to get together with him, and we'll determine if we are able to interview him, or would like to interview him again, see if he's got some things to say. Some stuff has happened, and I'll bring that up in a minute. Guillermo Rudolph has got to arrange some child care arrangements, and then we're hoping to interview him at the beginning of July. And then, of course, one of our future plans is hopefully to return to Toronto. So what you may ask, and you guys do an awful lot. You support Paul. I'm sure there are numbers of support, but what can you do? If you're able to do, you help Paul with mailing, that's good. You help him with that. Videos, like Brian and Jim and Guillermo, and even I'll do videos. That's one way to do it. You say, well, I can't do videos. Well, you can write letters to your political people. I know if you're lucky they read English or German, that would be good. Okay, I don't write letters. Well, there's also donations. If you have donations to give, then that's great. It helps because, as you know, the Jews come after us if they can't discredit our reputation, which they do that first. And maybe even simultaneously, they'll come after our finances, one way or another. Some of us are presently untouchable, but if we're in a job, we're not. We're extremely vulnerable. And so and Paul knows this. They came after him, took away his teaching certificate. First of all, they deprived him of being able to teach in high school, then night school, then his teaching certificate, and then Warman came after him for, wants some spare change or something. So, and so Paul knows what it's like to be targeted by this group. And then the donations are immensely helpful because we are, the people who have done the most, like Guillermo Rudolph, have been marginalized unbelievably. They've had, Ernst, cost a fortune to defend himself in court. Mark Lemire, his constitutional challenge. I think he said it cost him $90,000. It's not so. When people are doing this fighting, you've got the government on one side trying to bankrupt them, and on the other side you're trying to accomplish something. So all Jim and I do is we do what we can while we can, as long as we can. We know our days are numbered. This bill is an indication. It's a saber rattling against free speech in Europe. It's what they hope will happen over here and then in the States. And I know they're hoping simultaneously. Heaven help them if they actually have to deal with freedom fighters in the United States. The last thing they want to do is rouse up the populace to get them to fight back. It seems like that happened a couple hundred years ago. It didn't turn out well for the
Can I
guys.
just ask a question about YouTube? Brian has had a love-hate relationship with YouTube, and he recently got a second strike, all because of me. And I thought, well, my videos are so mild. It was just the headline that turned them off. It was, he's a homosexual Ghanaian, crippled person who didn't know enough to come out of the cold. And now he's ours. Anyway, that headline, that cranked their gears the wrong way. But they have a complicated system of strikes, and if you get 3 strikes within 3 months, they take down everything you've got. So he had 2 strikes, but he lost 1 strike because the 3 months have run out. But it puts, if somebody who's quite prolific, it puts you under a lot of pressure. Can I run this, can I load this video? I mean, is this going to get me another strike? Have you had problems with
No, I'm not sure why. One clue in that regard to YouTube is diversify. I'm not sure how clear I need to make that euphemism.
Nobody here likes
diversity. It's different. Diversify, not in your population, but in your identity to some extent. I personally have 3 YouTubes.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So, but I still just use one, and I don't know what the deal is. I don't know about these strikes. Maybe that's what happened with Jim when they pulled down his 700. I think they just took him down because somebody in his town had connections, applied pressure. So the YouTube people, oh, what the heck. So, it doesn't matter, he's a Holocaust denier, he's an anti-Semite. So they pulled it, but they pulled also his brothers as well. And their talk about Christianity, their talk about American history, their talk about just all sorts of different topics that weren't just about revisionism, about the Holocaust. It was about immigration. But it doesn't matter. They are not going to be discriminating. They're going to just yank it all. And right now they...
about me being banned on Facebook.
Yes, dear. Oh, Facebook. Oh my gosh, that's another thing. That's another thing. I've got a list that I send out every now and then of updates. Now, Joe is constantly being banned on Facebook. That means he gets a 30-day sit on the side for a while. Jim's name, Jim Rizzoli, has been totally banned on Facebook. He's now under Jamie Rambo. So if you want to access him on Facebook, that's his name. Or you can look on my friends list. You'd see it was there. There was no reason he should have, when Joe was kicked off, that's his twin brother, Joe was kicked off, I had something on. They didn't like the fact that I was presenting pictures, including the one I got at your house, Rosie, about Adolf Hitler one April. I mean, I got kicked off for 30 days for that one. They didn't like all the pictures. Now, Frederick Tobin liked them. All the pictures, all the tributes, all the videos linked. Man, I got complaints right and left. Joe was saying, and Jim, there's somebody on your list that is not a friend. So I went through and purged everything. If you have a restriction on your Facebook list, they are not going to, your family, my family even puts up with me. Some of them have unfriended me and some of them have blocked me, but they don't report me. And so, but to restrict out YouTube, you can't restrict. I wouldn't want to restrict access to it. They do that in almost 24 countries in Europe. We get constant notices that the things we put up are outlawed in Europe. That's how we know we're on the right track. And then so the people in Europe have to contact us or they find other ways to download them and get them and stuff. But YouTube will be cracking down, and they will say it's for copyright infringement, whether it is or not. They will say somebody has complained. That's the blatant one, and that's probably where the strikes come in. I've never heard of strikes, but regarding the strikes, that's what the discussion group in Framingham, the email discussion group, has. And there's this one despot who runs the whole thing. And she decides what's acceptable conversation or not. So when Jim and Joe were on there, Joe got so disgusted he opted out, but he was never kicked out. We kept challenging, and I finally got into it, challenging on the issue of immigration, and then they started bringing up the Holocaust. I'll tell you what, there's nothing that gets our dander up than to talk about our favorite subject. And so then that brings everybody out, and the despot has to calm everybody down. But if she perceives in the multitudinous government-type regulation that we have violated her rules, we get strikes. You get 3 strikes, you'll be banned, probably 2 weeks. I was in one of these positions. I had just been banned for 2 weeks because though they said I didn't have to use my real name, they insisted I did. I did, and all this is with videotaping and talking to them, and they said, yeah, that's fine, that's good. Okay, well, now we want your full name, now we want your full town. And so, okay, here it is. And so then because I said something that she didn't like, I was banned for 2 weeks from this discussion group. They came back during the ban and said, you lied to us about your identity, you're banned for 5 years. So they went right back on us. Well, Jim had already been banned. I mean, he was talking with this guy he knows and has helped, and Linda didn't like it, and so she... Are there any more questions? At some point, none of us are going to be able to do anything. That's why I said we do what we can while we can, as long as we can. And you all are extremely brave, because a meeting like this in a lot of communist countries could get you in real trouble. Just being here. In some places, they'd be taking pictures of your cars out there. They're not doing that here. Yes, sir. Yes, Christian.
You did say something about Donald Trump, but
yeah.
I didn't catch on to that. And of course, we would be very interested in what kind of positive things you do see in Donald Trump.
Okay.
Because
Donald
we
Trump,
are,
right.
of course, brainwashed the other way.
We in Framingham, you would not believe, the Boston area, would not believe the negative Donald Trump diatribe. Constantly, the PBS and all the news stations, they trot it out, and you think that he was the worst president ever. We know that isn't true. There's so many contenders. And so the thing is, I wish, and I've also sent letters, to stay out of other people's, in fact, he said we should not be the policemen of the world. Don't. Stay out of the business of other countries. Stay out of the Middle East. Have nothing to do with the Middle East. That's my wish. Okay, so I think he's getting a lot of pressure from the Jewish sector, except he's pushing back a little bit. He wouldn't approve the increased funding to the Holocaust Memorial. So he's pushing back on that. He's still, I believe, okay, John, you want to say something about that?
No, was that increased
No.
funding, or was it he reduced it by 3%?
No, I think he would not approve an increase, is what I read in that article.
At least in the Jewish papers, they're talking about a reduction.
Oh, I'm sure they are. They have a slightly different spin on a lot of things that we see differently. So he, I believe, is in the hiring more ICE agents, the immigration enforcement. ICE. It's Immigration Control Enforcement.
Yes.
Yes, I think that's right. And I love it. In Framingham, the police there say it's a federal issue to enforce immigration. It's not our job. And yet in other communities, I see police, ICE, police. And there's a collaboration with police in other communities. So they're just blowing smoke. Besides, I think they're on the take with the illegals. They take a lot of stuff under the table. There's a lot of information to suggest that that is the case. We're up against a beast that cannot be defeated in the normal way. It's a beast like a cockroach. So you have to shine the light on it. And the light right now is what we do, what we're all doing right now. What your German people are doing is absolutely courageous, particularly in this country. Absolutely courageous. And it's, I applaud you. So I cherish you too. And I hope that you're all going to be back with us, and we hope to come back in the fall. The thing is, it's important. You think, well, what's the relevance of the Holocaust? The Holocaust is being used against us at every turn. Jim gets alerts to what, dealing with the Holocaust and the Jews every day. It impacts our life. A friend of mine quoted someone as saying, the Holocaust is the boot at our neck. It's what keeps us down. It's what keeps us threatened, tortured. If we can disembowel it, if we can expose the lies of it, then we will, it could bring it down. And like Paul was saying, there's kind of a critical mass at this point. the information out there is going to keep coming, but people are getting more and more interested. You don't see them, but you go on the YouTube and look at the comments, or you go to various sites, look at the comments. We don't have the media sticking their mic in our face for our opinion. In fact, we're being shut down. Anybody like us. So if it's not being said out there, somebody's still saying it. And that's what kind of Jim and I are doing, is hoping that, and it has happened, people have contacted us one by one. Canada, US, Europe, letters, and so the word is getting out, and but it's not going to be a grand scale, very likely, but yet we don't know. Few here, few there, and all of a sudden you've got a majority. Not that we need it. We can do what we do without that. So if there aren't any questions, I thank you so much. You guys have been great. Oh.
Diane said there is no way out except through the Holocaust. By the way, what's going on with her? Is she still active on the net?
Who?
Carolyn Yeager.
Yeah, in fact, she just put an article in Ingrid's Power Letter in response to Donald Trump's speech. Where was that? But it was really pro-Jewish. And, you know, everything that we don't want to hear he was saying. It's almost like he was scripted. And so, yeah, I'm sure he's been told what to say, and here it is. You say this, and then you get another week to live or something. And I wouldn't put him past him, and I think he's biding his time on this one. So, just a second, Dee Dee. But in regard to him, Carolyn Yeager responded to that. So yeah, she's still around. I mean, he may not be as active as far as I know, but you know, she still contributes.
Right. She used to have 3 shows per week.
She probably, I know, she may be on hiatus right now, it seems like.
Important for us to be aware that there are people from other nationalities that no doubt support some of the concerns that we have. And it's important to
Absolutely.
be inclusive.
Oh, when I say German people, I mean everybody, because when the German people are attacked, we're all attacked. Okay, having said that, there are a number of people who do support, and I cherish it. Like, how about the Hungarians that just sent Horst Mahler back to Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they weren't very supportive. But I'm not saying all Hungarians are like that, because not all Hungarians are in power. It's that these mind-numbing Jew-serving people are. Yes, sir.
But as far as, just the Germans, I think she's making a point that you do see, and it has happened, that they're going after the Poles, they're going after the Hungarians, and everybody, and they go after the Americans.
Yes.
Why didn't you bomb the railway lines? So you're culpable also.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're all culpable. The thing is, we did, or the British anyway, did bomb the rail lines. That's why they ended up with no food and why typhus was so rampant in the camp. Yeah, they did. All the atrocities.
Auschwitz, they didn't bomb in Auschwitz. They bombed Monowitz once, but no.
And they bombed Nordhausen. No, I'm talking about the railway lines. The railway lines are strafed constantly just to stop food. Well, food was stopped to the camps. Medicine was stopped at the camps. Yeah, all these other people, yeah, if you come against the Jews, I don't care what your nationality is, and they don't either, they're going to come after you. So I applaud any people who support and Holocaust denial. I love that because it's such a derisive term. They think it offends us. I think it describes, I don't believe your crap, but basically is what we're saying. And I don't want to have to. And I want you to know it. I like that. So any Poles, Hungarians, Romanians, Yugoslavians, whatever. Canadians, absolutely. Canadians. And there's, like I said, I'm back to the, I cherish you. I cherish you. Thank you.